Good evening, friends, and welcome to our Holy Week worship experience that starts this evening and carries over into tomorrow evening for Good Friday. The two experiences are meant to come together to form one experience. One of the ways that we're going to mark the progression of the story is to reflect on the various anointings that Jesus experiences, whether with oil, water, or funeral spices. You'll need a little bit of oil or a bit of moisturizer to use for yourself or those who might be with you as part of this worship experience. And so, friends, let us begin.
Vessels, holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
This Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday, we invite you to reflect on the events of Holy Week through the commissioning from Christ to the disciples to heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, and cast out demons. These are the very things his disciples have seen him do, and that we have sought to witness for our own lives in this Lenten season. What will we do with this commission? How will we address ongoing pain with hope and conviction, even though we ourselves are healed and yet still healing? How will our experience of being anointed with Jesus and for ministry shape how we emerge from this Holy Week experience?
Vessels, holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come. Vessels, holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
Commission, Matthew 10, verses 1 to 8. Then Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to cure every disease and every sickness. These are the names of the 12. First, Simon, also known as Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James, son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, and Simon the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions: Go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without payment, give without payment.
The first commandment, Matthew 22:34. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him, "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment, and a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And on these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets."
The plot to kill Jesus, Matthew 26, 1 through 5. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas. And they conspired to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they said, "Not during the festival, or there may be a riot among the people."
Matthew's gospel is particularly concerned with indicting the leaders of Jesus' own people for their role in his crucifixion. This evening, we ponder our own roles in contributing to the unhealthy systems, the church's complicity at times, and the brokenness of the world. We acknowledge our need to restore, repair, and renew so that we might be able to create and imagine new possibilities, new solutions for the healing that is required to make the world more just and more whole. Let us gather together in prayer. God of suffering, you take no delight in the destruction of your creation or your people. Our own broken edges, sharp and raw, contribute to the pain sometimes. Especially during prolonged difficulty, we find ourselves struggling. We cannot manage it on our own, yet we try. Forgetting to turn to you, forgetting to turn to each other, forgetting the power you offer, the commission you give, to turn our tears to balm. To use our broken edges to cleave new realities of justice and hope. It all feels overwhelming, and so we look away. Help us, healer. Show us our own connection to your healing power. Forgive our disbelief. Move us to move one step at a time toward greater care for one another. In this silence, we sense and acknowledge our yearning for wholeness.
Jesus is anointed. Now while Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his hands, and he sat at the table. But while the disciples saw it, they were angry and said, "Why this waste? For this ointment could have been sold for a large sum, and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble this woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on me, on my body, she has prepared me for my burial. Truly I tell you, whenever this good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her."
The first anointing, extravagant love. Oil was used in many ways by ancient peoples. Mixed with various herbal properties, it served as healing balm, bringing increased blood flow and salve to the body. It was used in practical purposes as well, as a skin softener and odor reducer in cleansing practices. And it was used as an agent of significance in many rituals. The story of the woman with the alabaster jar of oil is a symbolic ritual action of great power. The pouring of oil on Jesus' head stood in the traditions of anointing leaders, kings to be specific, anointing on the head. Many of the symbols in the story of Holy Week point to the sovereignty of Jesus. Most of them carried out by unlikely and so-called unsanctioned people. This ritual of oil on the head of Jesus was carried out by an unnamed woman whose action of love, devotion, and the clear message that this teacher was her sovereign forever got angry reactions even from those who claimed to love Jesus most. Are we, like those first disciples, in danger of withholding our resources of extravagant love? Do we hesitate to proclaim the sovereignty, the reign of love and justice, equity and relief, of healing and wholeness, even as we proclaim to be disciples of the one who is love itself? Then Jesus turns the meaning of her anointing act on its head, so to speak. He recalls another use of oil on the body common in that time, that of embalming the dead. This must have been a shock to the disciples beyond even the shock they had already expressed. His message was clear. Now was not the time to worry about the treasury. The true treasure was in relationship, the one they had right before them, right now. And so this is our first anointing of the evening. I invite you to dip your fingers in the bowl of oil or rub moisturizer on them and place your hand on your head. If you are on your own this evening, or if you are with others, you may choose to place your hands on each other's heads in turn. Allow your hand to rest there for a moment. As you do so, I invite you to think of the people whose extravagant love has been poured out upon you, offering you care in the midst of your journey. Feel that care as affirmation of your worth. Know that this kind of love is always and already available to you through relationship with the Divine One. Take your time as the music plays. Allow the warmth of the hand to melt into your being, filling you with assurance that the Holy Presence moves with warmth and light within you, no matter how broken or far from life you feel. You are part of the reign of love in this world. Accept this anointing so that you might also offer this anointing, this healing, wherever it is needed.
Preparation for the feast, Matthew 26, 14 to 19. Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat this Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal.
Vessels holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
The second anointing, called to serve. While Matthew's gospel omits the details of the arrival of the disciples for the meal, we know from other gospel accounts that the customary washing of feet upon arrival took on a particular significance that night. Not only practical, but symbolic, the washing of feet in the ancient world indicated status, with servants washing the feet of their masters, pupils washing the feet of their teachers, children and wives washing the feet of the man of the house. Jesus was all these things of reverence and honor to those gathered that night. Jesus, and yet we know he washed their feet, rejecting the norms and indicating a new order of things, a new way to honor one another regardless of status. We do not know if Jesus' washing that night of the Last Supper was followed by an anointing with a fragrant oil, but we do know that this extra act of tending to the feet was done to express the highest form of respect and honor in the ancient world. And so our second act of anointing this evening follows in this tradition. You may wish to remove your shoes if that is comfortable for you. We will rub some oil or lotion on the top of our feet, on the tops of our hands, and place our hands on our hearts. Again, you can do this for yourselves or with and for others as you feel comfortable. As we rub some oil on the top of our feet, or whatever we use to move ourselves about in the world, we honor our efforts to go where healing is needed most. May we be blessed and strengthened for our work in the world. May we go and serve and remember to honor the places we go as holy vessels of God's love. As we rub some oil on the top of our hands or elbows or knees, We honor the efforts we have undertaken or will undertake to make this world a better place for all. May we be blessed and strengthened for our work in the world. May we reach out and serve and remember to honor the people we encounter as holy vessels of God's love. We place our hand on our chest. We honor the efforts of our hearts to heal the hurts within us, between us, and all around us. May we be blessed and strengthened for our continued work. May we be filled with compassion and care and remember to honor ourselves so that we might honor our neighbors as ourselves.
The supper, Matthew 26, 20 through 29. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed and began to say to him, one after the other, "Surely not I, Lord." And he answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to the one to whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." He replied, "You have said so." While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them. "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the new covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never again drink of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom."
Predictions. Matthew 26, 30 to 35. When they had sang the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples.
Friends, I invite you to repeat after me. I will never desert you. I will never deny you. I will never desert you. I will never deny you. I will never desert you. I will never deny you.
Jesus prays in Gethsemane. Matthew 26, 36 to 41. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So, could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak."
Let us take this moment, as Jesus did, to dare ask the questions that come from the most broken places of our souls, our deepest grieving. It is in acknowledging what feels most broken, most cynical, most impossible, that healing can occur. We must address the roots of our ill in order for the salve of God's love for us to enter. You are invited to a time of reflection, becoming awake, staying awake to the deep need within us and around us. Jesus prays in Gethsemane. Again, he went away for the 2nd time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again, he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him was a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must happen in this way?" At that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day, I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
Vessels, holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
Jesus before the high priest, Matthew 26, verses 57 to 68. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, and in whose house the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest. And going inside, he sat with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priests and the other council were looking for false testimony against Jesus, so that they could put him to death, but they found none. Though many false witnesses came forward, at last 2 came forward and said, "This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days." The high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said so, but I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do they still need witnesses? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" They answered, "He deserves death." Then they spat in his face and struck him, and some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, you Messiah, who is it that struck you?"
Peter's denial of Jesus, Matthew 26, 69 to 75. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the Galilean." But he denied it before all of them, saying, "I do not know what you're talking about." When he went out to the porch, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you also are one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment, the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
Vessels, holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
And so we go out into the shadows of this night, knowing what the future holds for us tomorrow, and how this story continues to evolve and shape, mold, inform, and challenge. We go knowing that the story we have remembered is one that challenged privilege, that challenged power and authority misused, that challenged systems of oppression. And so we go, knowing that the story isn't over, and that God goes with us. Friends, join us tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Pacific as we continue the narrative of Maundy, Thursday into Good Friday. As we remember, as we commemorate, and as we ponder the implications of Good Friday for us in this moment in time. We hope to see you then.